My name is Kate Hunt, and this is my work. I was born in Chester, Montana, actually in Havre, but moved to Chester when I was 4 months old. I think a lot about the landscape of Montana. The landscape I was raised in was very austere, but very beautiful, very complicated. It was a big sky country, and it gave me permission to work without a lot of color and a very austere type work that has a lot of complicated things going on. And I use the materials I do for the color and for the message that they send. I think of materials as communication. You know, if I were to add something like chickens or, feathers, that would send a message that wouldn't relate to the work. I look around this gallery and I see my work here and not in my own space, and it's pretty amazing. It's really amazing to see this work here because the work is separated from me, and so I can be objective about it, and it's really wonderful, wonderful to have it here. Because the way it reads here in this space is different than the way it reads in my own space. My studio is about 14 feet by 16 feet. It's very small, and it's got this huge paper cutter in it, and it's got a welder, and it's got, it's just this chaos that allows me to grab pieces and parts and materials. For example, like this piece, Black Blocks. When I did it, this guy, it's newspaper, it's copper wire, it's these big spikes, and it's all stuff that I had around. It's just stuff that, I had, and of course my drill press, and ran these big spikes through. Actually, you have to drill them through because they're not going anywhere. And then once that was all put together with the copper wire, I put them in water so that they expanded. And it's just kind of stuff that you have. The way I work is asking what if. Well, what if I throw this in water? What if I'm working with the material and it's speaking back to me, and I see that it's very flat and there's not a whole lot of interesting things going on, and I've got it wrapped and the wrapping isn't that tight. But if I throw it in water, what if I throw it in water and the whole thing puffs up, which these did. I mean, you can see how the water affected the paper. What happens? And so it shows that history of the way I'm working with it. Then I take them out, and it takes several weeks for them to dry because you don't want them rotting inside, and it takes several weeks. And after that, it's like, well, what if I'd cover them in wax and burn them? And I look at this, and to me it's finished. To me it's resolved. There's nothing more to do. But then, so I'm asking the question, well, what if? And I'm adding things into my repertoire slowly. If these are black blocks, what would white blocks look like? And the white blocks are over here. The whole white block thing is that I simply added white acrylic paint to them. And acrylic does not mix with wax really well. But what the heck, why not try it? And I think they turned out pretty stunning. I had no idea what would happen. I had no idea how they'd turn out, but they work. I look at art as a triangle. You have the art up here, you have the artist here, and you have the audience. And my relationship with the work is this artist relationship. And I work asking, what if I try this? You think about it. Artists ask the question, what if? Scientists ask why. Engineers ask how. But artists ask, what if? This piece is related to that piece. So I cut all the paper in the paper cutter, and then it's bound on the back, and it's bound on the front with drywall tape. So and Elmer's glue. So it's just newspaper, drywall glue, drywall paper and glue. And then I took a grinder and I ground all the, you can still see some of the paper in the front here, and I picked at it with a knife, and it was sitting under a sprinkler for about 3 days. you know, because it's that water thing again. On the back there is this drywall tape, and that was never released. That's still there. And as the paper got soaked in the sprinkler, it curled around, and of course it expanded this side and not that side, and so I have this wonderful curl. So this piece is 30 years old, and I got started working with newspaper in college when my teacher had us build those little finger traps. You know, the little, you get them at the carnival and you stick your finger in them and you can't get your fingers out. And she gave us newspaper and we folded it up and we wove these little finger traps. And then I started building bigger and bigger weavings. And this is one of them. And as I built them bigger and bigger, I had to find, you know, a way to cut the paper, and I found the guillotine cutter, and that led to this edge that you can see on the paper. And so I started cutting these strips to fold up to make these weavings. And it really is a case of one thing leading to another. And so once I started using that guillotine cutter, it cuts about 5 inches at once. I went, whoa, look at that. I mean, all of a sudden I had this construction material that just gave itself to me. And I think that's really important in everybody's work and in their lives, is to find that material or that method or that thought process that works for you. And you don't know why it works for you. You don't care why it works for you, but it does. If it's doodles, go with it. For me, it was this material was easy to obtain. I could, you know, it works very small, it works very big. I can do anything. It's forgiving, it gives itself. I can do anything I want with it, it seems. And I don't use newspaper for the sake of newspaper. I found the strips of paper, and so I started layering them like this. And you can see, and then the next step would be to take a chainsaw. You know, for a long time I used the papers together, and if you look on my website, you'll see a lot of the different pieces that were just simply put together like that. And then I discovered that you cut them in half with a chainsaw. And then, then I had these two halves, and I built a lot of pieces with just two halves and no kind of, you know, no more materials added in. And then eventually I was reading to my kids the book called The Big Ball of String. And it was just kind of this ridiculous book where this kid kept wrapping string around his, you know, just get a bigger and bigger ball of string. And I found baling twine and started wrapping these pieces. And the first one of this type with the baling twine on it was, well, what if I were to wrap this whole thing of baling twine onto these two halves of this newspaper? What would happen? And so I did that, and the piece was this big bulky thing with, but I discovered the colors work, and it read together, the materials worked. And so I've continued to do that to this day. I'm working on the floor. I've made several floor pieces, although these obviously become something else. They become the columns. And the only threat to these floor pieces that I've ever had, people wonder how durable they are. Well, they're pretty durable, except for my buddies, the goats, who lived in my studio, and they would eat them. Yes, I had a lot of problems with the goats eating my work. They were my harshest critics, but they were my best critics because they helped me with everything. And Frida and Pinky were twins. They're African pygmy goats. And it was another piece that's in this show because Steve picked it out. I would have never put it in because it's so kind of off the wall. And basically what they're about is they were my pets, and she was a princess and he was a goofball, and they just hung out with me working in the studio. And now I'm working on a drawing that is of Frida's nose, and it's that stupid picture that you take of every dog, your pet, when you got your camera and you're looking down at the dog and they're looking up at you, and you click and the eyes are way back here and the nose is up here, and it's very bizarre. Anyway, that's what I'm working on now. And if I worried about what the audience thought of that, I would go, oh, I'd never draw that. but you guys may never get to see it, so I get to do whatever I want. I was very lucky in that I was raised in Chester, and there were several people there that took the initiative to bring art to our little town. Chester's a town of 900 up on the close to the Canadian border between Havre and Shelby. And there was just some brilliant people there that decided we needed art. And I remember going to an art show in the gymnasium. And I was just a kid. And I just looked at it and went, well, duh, of course, this is what you do. It never dawned on me that it was special. It never dawned on me that I shouldn't be doing it. It was as natural as running is to some kids. You know, it was just there, and I never questioned it. And I never have questioned it. I've never become an artist. I have just been an artist. In the 5th grade, I remember doing things like braiding grass. We'd have this long, tall grass, and I'd braid it and make patterns in the grass. I remember doing a lot of that and tying it off and making bundles. I made a big peace sign. You know, I gathered the grass up and made a peace sign in bundled grass, in braided bundled grass. I'm still braiding my grass to this day. I did a lot of that. I don't know, you know, it was my parents were absolutely wonderful in the fact that they had so many things around, and I was in a very safe environment where I could, you know, grab rocks and grab lots of grass. And I don't really remember, I remember my mother was the one that fixed things. I really think about the fact that I'm taking symbols that we live with and symbols of our lives and adding my art to it. So what I've done again is combine two things. I've combined my way of working, my materials, my sensibilities, and the flag. And it's really pretty innocent, you know. It's just that it's a great vehicle. And I don't really know what the connotations are. I know my conversation with it. My conversation is about the color and the fact that it works. It speaks to me on a level that I really can't tell you about. It's not a level I can talk about. It just, this piece talks to me, this piece talks to me, and I can't tell you what they're saying. And hopefully they will talk to you too. And if you have to write a report on it, you may not have the words to describe how they talk to you, because words really get in the way a lot of time of art. And it's, you know, but I hope you can have a conversation with it where if you address it, it will address you back, and you will just accept that and go with it. And if your teacher says, "What did you think about it?" Just say it talked to me, it spoke to me. That's good enough. You know, it's don't let words get in your way too badly. Anyway.
That's good. That's
all right.